Alright guys, welcome back to Game Changers. Obviously things are escalating quite fast behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. We're now in the business end of the build, getting the cars stripped down, getting them ready for fabrication. Oh, by the way, a lot of people asking in the comments, what's Mike doing? Well, Mike is going to be building a 350Z later in the series. We're going to get to this when we get a little bit further along with the MX-5 and the Corvette. And he's going to be building an amateur competition car essentially. So we're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff with this as well. But we're not going to talk too much about that today because this video is all about the Corvette. And the Corvette has been stripped down to a certain extent, but today is going to be the most dramatic strip down. And this is going to be the weirdest part where we take the engine out and we take the subframe out and everything else comes out of the car, and that means that we're going to have this car ready for fabrication. But at the end of this little part, when everything is separated, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to tell you the full plan of the car. So no more guessing, no more wondering. We're going to tell you the full plan of the car, and hope you guys are excited as I am because it's going to be absolutely mental. So let the boys crack on. I'm back in a few to let you know the plan. Alright boys, it's looking a little bit different now. Have you ever had a car come apart like this, Mike?
Yeah, a tractor. It does actually look like a tractor when it's painted.
That is, it's like, you know when you go to like a museum and they have like a cross section of a car, it looks like that.
This is what a car starts at.
Yeah, so we have now got what essentially is the two subframes and the engine out of the car, which as you can see is very unusual, and we have got obviously the frame of the car up there, which is the next part we'll be working on. But because you guys have been watching a few episodes now and you're probably chomping at the bit saying, what is he doing with this Corvette? What's happening with it? I think we could have done it two ways. We could have teased it out over the next couple of months, Mike, which we
were thinking about doing.
We were thinking about doing that, but I think too many YouTubers are doing that. I think we're just going to tell you guys what the full plan for the car is, and it's the plan right now, so it could change, but this is kind of a couple of weeks of research, a couple of conversations, lots of talks with different companies, some things confirmed, some things not confirmed yet. A lot of arguments.
I'm not your buddy, friend.
I'd say the plan, like everything, the plan has changed probably 4 or 5 times. But I think I'm happy now with the plan, and there's still a couple of things we have to decide on, so I might tell you what I'm going to do, and then I might leave some of the decision making up to you guys in the comments so you can kind of tell me what you think.
Here at Drift Games, we absolutely love online drifting. But more importantly, for you guys watching at home, we want to get you in the game as well. So we've partnered up with digitalmotorsports.com, Ireland's first online sim store, who are experts in everything when it comes to online drifting. And they're going to give you guys a full free sim rig at the end of this series. Now I know you want to know, how do you win? Well, it's quite simple. Every single episode of Game Changers, we're going to release a letter. It looks a bit like this. And that letter will form a sentence. And at the end of the series, the first person who can put that full sentence together correctly wins a full simulator. Now that's not bad going.
So let's start with the front. As you can see, the boys are working away. We've separated the chassis from the car from the drivetrain, which is essentially on the ground. You see the engine, the diff, the gearbox, everything like that. So what we're going to do is start at the front. So the engine being the reason I bought the car. So it was an expensive car to buy because it has an LS3. That's the 6.2 litre. It's probably the right choice for the build. The 5.7 and maybe the 6 litre LS1 and LS2, they're going to cost a little bit more to get power out of, so I said let's go for the 6.2 from the start. And then the LS7 and LSX,
do give some trouble in terms of reliability. So we went right in the middle with the LS3. Good to get power out of, good displacement, and we're going to be upgrading a lot of stuff there. So the engine is going to go to Bob in Motorsport 56. We're going to get a very aggressive cam put in there. We're going to rebuild the entire head of the engine, and all that's pretty much to make it as reliable as possible. The one thing the LSs don't like doing is staying high in the revs a lot, so we're going to fix a lot of that with the head being upgraded and reinforced to make it reliable. We're also going to be adding LG Motorsports long tube headers. These guys in the States have run Corvette race cars for I think like 15 years, and they've done over 80 hours of testing on different manifold setups, and they've come up with probably the most, I suppose, aggressive headers you can put on the car. So they're on their way, which should give us quite a bit of horsepower. Also going to bolt on a Holley high ram intake. That means that it's going to be really high on close to the bonnet. We're not sure if it has to come through the bonnet or not, but basically if you put on the high ram intake, a lot more air into the engine, a lot more bang, a lot more power. We're going to need to cool all this down, so LG Motorsports again are going to send us their big huge radiator, and that radiator actually has the oil cooler and the power steering cooler all built into the one unit, which is super neat, and we get all the fittings with it. So that's our power steering sorted, that's our oil cooling sorted, that's our radiator sorted. So all of that stuff is to keep the engine cool, because the Corvette does suffer from a little bit of overheating because it has no front grille essentially to let a lot of the air in. We haven't decided on an air intake yet, but we'll come back to that later on. So the entire engine system is going to be run by a Link ECU and all the Link ECU sensors, and we've been using Link ECU for years. It totally transformed my Mustang, and we're going to get rid of all the Chevrolet stuff out of there, and we're going to put all Link stuff in there. That means that the ECU in the car is so much more intelligent and quicker to make decisions than the standard ECU would be, and it means that we can monitor everything that's going on with the drivetrain in the car, which is absolutely perfect. And at the track, we can plug the laptop in and see if everything's performing as it should be. So really looking forward to putting the Link in there, and then we're going to run it on the dyno in track day performance. I've probably missed out on a load of stuff there, like injectors and fuel rails and all that kind of stuff, but we'll get to that as we go along the project. But basically, the end product here is going to be 600 horsepower, naturally aspirated, which is exactly what I want. It's the exact power I want, and it's the exact amount of torque I want to be competitive in the championships we're aiming for next year. Now let's move on to the suspension, which is one of the most important parts of the car. And there we've teamed up with two amazing companies. So FDF Race Shop are a company in Canada who make custom angle kits, some of the best in the world, and they're an up-and-coming company. And I saw their Mantis Angle Kit for the Corvette. It just looked insane. It was put on Cletus McFarlane's car. You guys will watch him drift his car, Donnie. He has a C5. Looks like it's an amazing piece of kit. So I contacted them, and it turns out he's actually a fan of the channel, which shows how small the drift world is. We did a deal, and we're going to be running the FDF Race Shop Angle Kit on the Corvette, on my Mustang, and we're also going to be running it on Mike's 350Z as well. So we're looking really forward to testing those kits, because the standard Corvette lock is like 25 degrees or 30 degrees. It's like terrible. So then you've got your angle kit, you're going to have really, really good suspension. And from there, we've hooked up with the guys in Group D. They put us in touch with the guys at BC Racing, and Group D are the distributor for BC Racing coilovers in Ireland. And BC Racing were really excited about the project, and they're sending us over 3 kits, one for the Corvette, one for Josh's MX-5, and for the Mustang as well. So the suspension kits they're sending over are top of the line. They're going to transform the way the car gets grip. But more importantly, BC Racing are actually going to send over one of their experts when we go to testing to make sure that we get the most out of the coilovers, that we understand exactly how they work and everything that goes into making the car more competitive by using their coilovers. So I'm excited for that as well. Also, Darren McNamara from Group D will be coming on board for a lot of different parts on the car, and he's also going to act as an advisor on the build, especially when it comes to alignment and setup. And he's going to work with the guys from BC to make sure that we have the absolute best setup we can on all the cars. From the suspension, we start to move down the car. So this car is an automatic originally, which is absolutely useless. Torque tube, which is the bit that goes between the clutch on the engine and the gearbox, that actually is different from an automatic to a manual. We didn't realize when we bought this, but we got to buy a whole new unit there, which basically is a new clutch, and that clutch now needs to have all of its ancillaries. So we need a pedal box, we need master cylinders, slave cylinders, reservoirs, all the hydraulics to make the clutch work. That's going into a brand new torque tube where we're uprating the actual torque tube shaft. And if you guys are looking at the torque tube thinking it's very odd, it pretty much just is a prop shaft with a protective aluminium case on it, because obviously with the floor of the car being fiberglass, they didn't want obviously the drive shaft to come up straight through the floor of the car. So that's why it looks kind of bulky and unusual, but it's the same as a prop shaft really. So we're going to uprate that with a drive shaft shop, uprated aluminium one, which is built to take way more horsepower and won't bend and break. So that's brilliant. Then as we go down the torque tube, it meets the gearbox. and it's an automatic gearbox, so that's going in the bin, absolutely useless. And then that automatic gearbox was going into an automatic diff, which is also useless and had a 3-4 ratio, which is like, I'd never get out of second gear. So what we're gonna do is put all of that in the bin, and we're gonna go and put in probably the best setup we possibly can, which is now gonna transform this car from a really good car to an amazing Drift Masters or FD spec level car. We got on the phone with our good friend Chris Stapps in HGK, and he's done a couple of these conversions for guys in Russia and Daigo and lots of other people. And we're just gonna go all out. We're gonna do it right from the start. So we're gonna run a Samsonite sequential 4-speed, and we're gonna mate that into a Winters quick change rear end into uprated chrome alloy shafts and hubs, which means this car should be pretty reliable and pretty unbreakable, because when we go to the track, there ain't gonna be a ton of parts for Corvettes there around the pit. So we need to make sure this car is unbreakable and pretty much reliable and can just drive every day without any issues. And we want to do tons of seat time too, so we don't want to be fixing things. So that pretty much brings us to the end of the drivetrain. So even though we're replacing so much of the drivetrain and the engine and everything else, we're going to make everything else that's staying on the car look as nice as possible. So our guys in TH Components are going to powder coat all of the standard parts that we're going to put back on the car. So subframes, some of the rear suspension arms, things like that, anti-roll bars. We're going to powder coat all of those. So basically when you see that drivetrain the next time, which will probably be in 2 or 3 months, going back in the car, every single part of it's going to look absolutely brand new, and then we're going to put it back up into the chassis. And that's where I'm going to next, the chassis. So obviously it's going to be a fully race prepared car with a lot of rigidity and safety in mind. The cage is a little awkward to do on them because the floors are fiberglass, so there's got to be boxes put in. But I'm going to get to the fabrication in a future episode because there's so much interesting stuff we're doing there. We'll get onto that down the line. The last little piece I'm going to give you, because I don't want to give all the secrets away, is that a lot of people would have looked at the first episode and said, that's a very heavy car. Well, changing the gearbox and diff is going to take so much weight out of the car. We have stacks, a trailer full of parts that's not going back on the car. And the bit that's really going to make this one of the lightest Corvettes in the world is the guys from HGK are going to be providing us with a full, dry, carbon fiber body paneled car. Everything on the body is going to be carbon fiber. Bumpers, fenders, bonnet, spoilers, boot lids, you name it, everything is going to be carbon fiber. So it's as close to a HGK car as we could build ourselves with the best stuff from HGK. So that is pretty much the view of the car, how competitive it's going to be. As you can imagine, it started off as a simple project and now it's turning into an absolute beast of a car, but very expensive. But we're going for the right stuff. We're going to the companies we know that make the best stuff, and if our aim is to be professional drifters, our machinery has to be as good as what's out there on the grid. And I think building all that together, it's going to be one hell of a car. It's going to sound good, it's going to stop good, it's going to handle good, it's going to have tons of lock, tons of power, and it's going to be reliable, and it's got a sequential gearbox which gets around my big problems with the left-hand drive in the car. I just bang that gear and away we go. So there you have it, guys. That is the plan, or at least the rough plan. Things can change between now and the end of the build for what we're going to do with the Corvette. Obviously, we've got a plan from the start, we've got a budget from the start, and the budget is the scary part. Obviously, as you can imagine, all of those parts that I've mentioned are expensive. We have some amazing companies coming on board. How much do you think all that's going to cost? I will be explaining this in a future episode. I'm going to try and break down how much it's going to cost us, how much time it's going to take, how much over budget we are, but how much help we've got from partners to get back somewhere towards budget. But if you guys want to make a guess in the comments below how much you think all of that is going to cost to finish, that's not even including the wrap, the paint, and the wiring, and everything else that goes with it. There's so much to building a drift car. It's not just about picking a car and picking an engine. It is a huge undertaking, and we're doing it twice with 2 cars. So if you guys like the episode so far, if you want me to do a full breakdown of the budget, let me know in the comments below. Or if you want to take a guess at how much the Corvette is going to stand me by the end of the build, let me know in the comments. And yeah, next time you're going to see this car, it's going to be getting prepared for full fabrication and becoming a full race car, not just a cut-up road car. So I'm excited to see the changes there. Thank you guys for watching all the episodes so far. Thank you for all the words of support as well. It really means a lot to us. We are kind of scared and nervous about this project, and if you guys want to help out in your own way, if you want to support the project, we would really appreciate anyone that grabs some of the Drift Games merch. It's awesome to see people wearing it. We spent a lot of time designing it, and it's really comfortable and really hard wearing. And if you guys grab some of that, that's the best way of supporting us. And we hope you guys are still jumping in on those letters for the Digital Motorsport simulator giveaway. I want to remind everyone that we are only opening entries for that on the last week of the series. So collect all your letters, and at the end of the series, we'll be able to open those guesses about a couple of days before the last episode, so you guys can get ahead of the curve and try and win yourself that amazing prize. Other than that, nothing left to do but move on to some other areas and move on to Josh's car and come back to the Corvette when it's ready for fabrication. See you soon, guys.